and tonight is our second shorts program, Another Brick in the Wall. You may have noticed our program titles, which we had a little bit of fun with. And I will say tonight there are bricks and walls, so I'll let you put that together. To begin, we would like to acknowledge that tonight's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are exceedingly grateful to be having the opportunity to work with the community. And we have a number of guests tonight. I just want to say we're starting a little bit late, so we're going to have a shortened Q&A. So I'm going to ask the filmmakers to come up and give an intro, and then we'll try to get as many questions in as possible. But I appreciate your cooperation on this because we're starting a little bit late to get everybody in. So I would like to welcome to Toronto, Helena Wittmann, Mary Helena Clark, Philipp Fleischmann, Ben Rivers, and Jared Alterman, who's representing Lawrence Abu Hamdan with Walled Unwalled. So there are a number of themes running through the program. Some are quite mysterious. There's some architecture, and I'm going to pass the microphone to Helena.
Well, thanks for having us, I can say, and thank you for being here. I'm very happy. It's the first time I see the film on the big screen, and it's nice to experience it with you.
Yeah, hello, and thank you for being here. My film's The Glass Note, and it started off as an exploration of the voice.
Hello, also thank you for being here, and thanks for having the films. My films are titled The Invisible Cinema 3 and Mumo Kino, and don't blink too much with your eyes, they are very short.
Thanks. It'd be bad if I didn't say thanks now after they. So thanks. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Andrea, again for another. I was kidding. Yeah, no. No, but really. My film does have bricks in and some animals, and it was a commission by some architects. So that's simple.
Thank you. This is our international premiere for Walled Unwalled. Lawrence couldn't be here. He's installing a show in London, but I'm really excited to show it in this room. It's pretty amazing. We filmed this in the place called a Funk House in East Berlin. Many of you may have heard of it or seen it. It's where former Russian propaganda plays were put on during the Cold War, and we kind of put on our own play for, if you will, for the camera. So thank you for being here.
So the the film was it was commissioned by the architect 6A who had made this new part to this 1960s college, like brutalist college, and they'd made a new residential wing. And but one of the things they said to me was that the college is really proud of all of its trees. I think, because it was Churchill College, all these different countries around the world donated different trees. So when they built the college, they planted them all in these different, all these different quarters, which each have a single tree in the middle. So like about halfway through, you hear the Greek, the Latin names of the trees read by a Greek woman. The trees became the sort of, it was this kind of relationship between the hard buildings and the trees and that nature. And but I'm a big fan of John Ashbery, and in a way the film, I think I was just finding my way towards like trying to use that poem. So I mean, and it's such a great poem. I've listened to it over and over, and the fact that also it was his first poem that he wrote when he was at college, and this is like this is a film about also this educational institution. So there was a nice sort of tie in there. And yeah, thanks.
I'm going to ask Philippe if you had 2 short films tonight. You've shown work here before. These are part of a series, and I'm wondering if you tell us how they're made and how you consider them in between the museum world, the architectural space, and filmic space.
How should I start? Well, yeah, I'm since 4 or 5 years I make a small series of films, analog films, celluloid films that somehow deal with institutions in the field of art. I started with gallery spaces, museum spaces, white cubes, so to speak, and now these 2 are about exhibition space cinema. How they are made? I construct or I build my own camera devices for these films, mainly because when I first encountered film, celluloid film, and I got to know how that actually works, I didn't agree what the very apparatus of a camera is doing as a machine. So I felt the need or the interest to not put the material of film, the film strip, not putting that into that existing camera apparatus, but creating my own, which allows me to formulate different kinds of relationships to my subjects of interest, and that in these films are mainly architectural spaces, exhibition spaces. And within my interest in these exhibition spaces, I'm very much interested in spaces that have a very strong opinion, so to speak, that have a very strong, if you may say, philosophical point of view or idea how art should be exhibited. And then I'm interested to react to this concept with the medium of film, but also how and which kind of cameras I construct. Maybe to make it one more sentence to make it maybe a bit more clear. So, for example, in the film The Invisible Cinema 3, where the cinema space is supposed to disappear, to not be there, completely dark. The whole attention is just on the screen, a concept by Peter Kubelka. I took that very literal on the first hand. So my camera is actually taking the point of view of that screen, looking into the cinema, looking into that mantle, so to speak, that should disappear. But of course, there's always something. I would say, it's not possible that something completely disappears, like be it the neutral white space or the dark invisible cinema.
So there was architectural running through the themes, but also a lot of language and a lot of text. And Elena, I'm going to turn to you because there's also a quiet mystery and in your film, and I wonder if you can expound upon the title and the text at the beginning and how it relates potentially to the space in which you filmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as well, the title as the text came quite late in the process of making this film. So I had the material for quite a long time. I shot it 4 years ago, and I kept watching it to understand it, really. And and then I think first the song came up, and some later, by just listening to it, and I didn't understand it at that time because I didn't understand Portuguese. Only like bits and pieces, but somehow I had the feeling that it related, and I didn't know why. So I kept on, going into this. I translated, and it was there. And the text, well, the material itself was really strong to me, So it transcended so much already. So I didn't know if I would need a lot to add. But yeah, there were some things I wanted to do like a prologue, as I did now. And it's difficult to say because I didn't work on the text. It's very often that, you know, it's years, it's running. I lay down and it's there. I wrote it down. And of course I refined it in a way. And then, it's spoken in Chinese and Mandarin because I wanted to, I think it's not about a certain country or a certain place. But it's all in there in a way. So I wanted to distance it from it, and I wanted a language I don't understand. And I had to trust the translator and to work with him. That was one point. And then the title, I was looking for islands that had drowned. And this island it was a very small island on the Danube River. Like 2 kilometers long or something, and it was over the centuries. It belonged to Turkey or to Austria. It's on the Serbian land, and in the end, it became like a kind of paradise, maybe. So there was a mosque, there were coffee houses, they planted roses. And in the 70s, early 70s, they decided to build a power plant. Not a nuclear one, but a power plant. And so they decided they had to drown it. So they destroyed the island and it drowned. Yeah. So more fragments to all this.
And Mary Helena, you introduced your film as saying it was about the voice. So can you tell me what about the voice and where the genesis of the project came from? Because it is quite mysterious in many ways.
Well, the project started with the first image, so the neck with the series of lasers. And that was just an image that kind of came to me, you know, as something that I needed to make. And then the more I looked at it, the way that the lasers played with the skin, and they seemed to sort of feel inside the body and both on top of it. They seemed to be menacing, but also animated. Once I added the sound of the bird song, they seemed to kind of express something cellular and molecular. So it was like it was very confusing, and it kind of penetrated the boundaries of the body. And then when I added the hum, it felt like a way of articulating this voice that's contained, and thinking about the voice as this product or byproduct of a series of mechanisms inside the body, but also being this thing that is so important to a person and their personhood, and so intimate. And so I think beginning to try to make that visual and complicated was like the genesis of the project. And then thinking more broadly about sound in relationship to image. I mean, I think as filmmakers, we all think about that, but like sort of it as ventriloquism. Like, when does sound make something animate, or when does it trouble it or puncture it or destabilize it? And thinking through that happening naturally in the world. So there's a series of tourists banging these rocks, and they're lymphonic rocks that sound like bells. And so it's a tricky, natural phenomenon. And then throughout the film, we can flip things on their head by doing this sort of ventriloquism. Like the woman opening her mouth and we hear a song, but it's an inanimate object. So playing with, I think, animacy and inanimacy, and the body as a mechanism that, I don't know, can feel stable, and then can also feel like something that's permeable or extended through an object.
Which is a perfect segue to Lawrence's film, obviously. So Jared, I'd love to hear more about, this text is so intelligent, but you also get the feeling that it could go on forever, you know, that there could be multiple chapters. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and the development of the text.
Sure. I'll do my best to speak for Lawrence. I mean, the idea came from his original interviews with the prisoners from Sednaya, and those were released. And you know, he wanted to do something bigger that explored sound and architecture, and that led him to start thinking about also legal cases, which kind of brought it all together. When we met aesthetically, the idea was to kind of riff off of Spalding Gray's Swimming to Cambodia. That was kind of our original talk, was to do something not as serious, to do something fun and kind of wacky and theatrical. And when we found this space, it all kind of came together because, you know, when we were making this, we were kind of transported back to a time when they actually put on, you know, these kind of strange propaganda plays in these very rooms. And I don't know, I kind of lost the question, but I'll just say that making this film was so weird because even though we pre-lit and we pre-rigged, it was a raw space. It's still sound studios, but now it's kind of a performance space. But we only had a day to kind of pre-light everything and set up all our projectors. Everything we wanted it to feel as if it was kind of one take. I mean, it pretty much was. But the strange thing was when Lawrence went on the other side of the glass, he couldn't hear us, and he couldn't see us because everything was black. And that was the strangest, most frustrating thing for me. I mean, normally if it was a larger budget, he would have had clear comms and we would have communicated. There would have been someone saying, okay, now, you know, the extras move the wall, but we all kind of rolled the dice. And for Lawrence, he was, I don't know, I guess a bit of a nihilist. He just kind of loved the chaos and felt that, okay, the performative nature of this, of really feeling what a barrier, you know, a wall is. This helped him in the process. Frustrating for us because it was like, there's even a take in this where at some point the camera swings and he kind of looks at me like, you're not really supposed to do that, but I'll just keep talking. And the more we did it, we kind of embraced the whole this wall, this you know, but I think I don't know, it all kind of came together for us. And in an installation space, just to kind of speak what you were talking about, this was amazing to see this in a cinema space. But in October, it's going to play at the Tate in the tanks. And it's great because it does play as a loop, as a perfect loop. So you know, this is our first film together, and we're already talking about kind of doing similar things like this. There's so many stories. I mean, he's so brilliant. There's so many little things that he's picked up on as a forensic sound artist, I guess you call him. And yeah, I just hopefully we'll get to do more.
Thank you all for being here. We're letting in I see there are questions. Unfortunately, we have to take them out of the cinema relating to space again. But thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.